this is Dr. Sanfilippo, and today we have a treat for you. Special guest reader. Incredible staff members reading incredible stories, and they're coming at you right now. Go Crickets.
The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. At the far end of town, where the grickle grass grows, and the wind smells slow and sour when it blows, and no birds ever sing excepting old crows, is the street of the lifted Lorax. And deep in the grickle grass, some people say, if you look deep enough, you can still see today where the Lorax once stood, just as long as it could, before somebody lifted the Lorax away. What was the Lorax, and why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere from the far end of town where the grickle grass grows? The old Onceler still lives here. Ask him, he knows.
You won't see the Onceler. Don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkum on top of his store. He lurks in his lurkum under cold under the roof, where he makes his own clothes out of muffered moof. On a special dank nights in August, he peeks out of the shutters, and sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax was lifted away. He'll tell you perhaps if you're willing to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail, and you have to toss in 15 cents and a nail, and the shell of a great grandfather snail. Here's the bucket. Then he pulls up the pail, makes a most careful count to see if you paid him the proper amount. Then he hides what you paid him away in his snoovy, his secret strange hole in his grooveless glove. He grunts, I will call you by, whisper my phone, for the secrets I tell you, for your ears alone. Some of these words are funky. Slop! Down slops the whisper my phone to your ear, and the old Oncer's whispers are not very clear, since they have to come down through a snuggerly hose, and he sounds as if he had smallish bees up his nose. Now I'll tell you, he says, with his teeth sounding gray, how the Lorax got lifted and taken away. It all started way back, such a long, long time back.
Way back in the days when the grass was still green, and the pond was still wet, and the clouds were still clean, and the song of the swomy swans rang out in space, one morning I came to this glorious place, and I first saw the trees, the truffula trees, the bright-colored tufts of the truffula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze. And under the trees I saw brown barbaloots, frisking about in their barbaloot suits, as they played in the shade and ate truffula fruits. From the pond came the comfortable sound of the humming fish humming while splashing around.
But those trees, those tuffula trees, all my life I've been searching for trees such as these. The touch of their tufts was much softer than silk, and they had sweet smell and fresh buttery milk. I felt a great leap of joy in my heart. I knew just what I'd do. I loaded my cart. In no time at all, I had built a small shop Then I chopped down the tuffula tree with one chop. And with great skillful skill and great speedy speed, I took the soft tuff and I knitted a thneed. The instant I'd finished, I heard a gazump. I looked, and I saw something pop out of the stump of a tree I'd chopped down. It was sort of a man. Describe him? That's hard. I don't know if I can. He was shortish and oldish and brownish and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy.
Our turn to read, Charlie. Mister, he said with a sawdusty sneeze, I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues. And I'm asking you, sir, at the top of your lungs. He was very upset, and he shouted and puffed, What's that thing you made out of my truffle tuft? Your turn.
Look, Lorax, I said, there's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I am doing no harm. I'm being quite useful. This thing is a thneed. A thneed is fine, something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat. But it has other uses. Yes, far beyond that. You can use it for carpets, for pillows, for sheets, or curtains or covers for bicycle seats. The Lorax said, Yes, you are crazy with greed. There is no one on earth who would buy that fool thneed. But the very next minute, I proved he was wrong. For just that minute, a chap came along, and he thought that the thneed I had knitted was great. He happily bought it for $3.98. I laughed at the Lorax, you poor stupid guy. You never can tell what some people will buy. I repeat, cried the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I'm busy, I told him. Shut up, if you please. I rushed across the room and in no time at all built a radio phone. I put in a quick call. I called my brothers and uncles and aunts and I said, Listen here. Here's a wonderful chance for the whole Onceler family to get mighty rich. Get over here fast. Take the road to North Nitch. Turn left at Weekum, sharp right at the South Stitch. And in no time at all, in the factory I built, the whole Onceler family was working full tilt. We were all knitting thneeds as busy as bees of the sound of chopping of truffula trees.
Then, oh baby, oh, how my business did grow. Now, chopping one tree at a time was too slow. So I quickly invented my super axe hacker, which whacked off 4 truffula trees at one smacker. We were making thneeds 4 times as fast as before, and that Lorax, he didn't show up anymore. But the next week, he knocked on my new office door. He snapped, I'm the Lorax who speaks for the trees which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown Barbaloots, who played in the shade in their Barbaloot suits, and happily lived eating truffula fruits. Now, thanks to your hacking my trees to the ground, there's not enough truffula fruit to go round. And my poor Barbaloots are all getting the crummies because they have gas and no food in their tummies. They loved living here, but I can't let them stay. They'll have to find food, and I hope that they may. Good luck, boys, he cried, and he sent them away. I, the Onceler, felt sad as I watched them all go. But business is business, and business must grow, regardless of crummies in tummies, you know.
And so, said the Lorax, please pardon my cough. They cannot live here, so I'm sending them off. Where will they go? I don't hopefully know. They may have to fly for a month or a year to escape from the smog you've smogged up around here.
What's more, snapped the Lorax, his dander was up. Let me say a few words about Gluppity Glup. Your machinery chugs on, day and night without stop, making Gluppity Glup, also Schloppity Schlop. And what do you do with this leftover goo? I'll show you, you dirty old Onceler man, you.
What are you doing?
You're glumping the pond where the humming fish hummed. No more can they hum, for their gills are all gummed. So I'm sending them off. Oh, their future is dreary. They'll walk on their fins and get woefully weary in search of some water that isn't so smeary. And then I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Lorax, now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap yap and say bad, 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 bad. Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, you Lorax, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering and biggering, turning more truthful trees into thneeds, which everyone needs.
What are you doing, Mom? What were you doing?
And at that very moment we heard a loud whack. From outside in the fields came a sickening smack of an axe on a tree. Then we heard the tree fall, the very last Truffula tree of them all. No more trees, no more thneeds, no more work to be done. So in no time my uncles and aunts, every one, all waved me goodbye. They jumped into my cars and drove away under the smoke-smuggered stars. Now all that was left neath the bad-smelling sky was my big empty factory, the Lorax and I.
The Lorax said nothing, just gave me a glance, just gave me a very sad, sad backward glance as he lifted himself by the seat of his pants, and I'll never forget the grim look on his face when he hoisted himself and took leave of this place, through a hole in the smog, without leaving a trace. And all that the Lorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks, with one word, unless. Whatever that meant, well, I just couldn't guess. That was long, long ago, but each day since that day I've sat here and worried away. Through the years, while my buildings have fallen apart, I've worried about it with all my heart. But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you, who cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So, catch, calls the Onceler. He lets something fall. It's a Truffula seed, the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the Truffula seeds, and the Truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new Truffula, treat it with care, give it clean water, and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest, protect it from axes that hack. Then the Lorax and all of my friends may come back.
Hi, everybody. Glad to see you. And sit back, relax, and take a look at Moustache by Margie Palatini. Moose had a horrible problem, a horrible, hairy, prickly problem, and it grew right below his nostrils and just above his upper lip. A moustache. Now, not a few spare hairs or shy stubble, no mere weak wandering whiskers on the upper lip of this moose. Oh, no siree. Moose had a big, bushy, bristly, mighty moustache, but a moustache that was a burly, surly, mangy mess. And it itched a lot. Sure, he plucked, he tweezed, he even clipped, snipped, and teased. But his combs were still cowards, and his brushes rebelled, and his scissors simply surrendered. Moose was in a frizzy tizzy. The moustache was completely cramping his style. He was a great hoofer, but he could barely bop and hip-hop with a moustache going flip-flop. He was a wonderful chef, but he simply could not flambe his souffle with all of those whiskers in his way. And he was a daring skier, but how could he downhill race with the mighty moustache blowing in his face? Oh, Moose had to do something, and soon. But what? After days and days of much serious thought, Moose got an idea. He crossed some hair here, he crossed some hair there, and tied his moustache right around his neck. A moose scarf seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. But then his moustache got knotted and mangled and horribly tangled, and those hundreds of hairs still prickled and tickled. Worse, Moose could barely take a breath with all that moustache wrapped around his neck. So Moose untied, unwrapped, unknotted, and gulped in some fresh air. He got another idea. He parted some hair this way, and he parted some hair that way, and he heaped all that moustache on top of his head. Ha-ha! Moustachioed antlers seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, until a squadron of squirrels and one very nosy gopher moved right into the Moose Motel. They huddled and hoarded, burrowed in, burrowed out, and needless to say, it became quite crowded up there in Moose's head, and heavy, and messy. And very, very noisy. The squirrely chitting and chatting, squeals and squawks woke Moose every morning before the crack of dawn, and that gopher was giving the moose one hairy headache. Moose needed his sleep, he needed his rest, he needed his privacy. Moustachioed antlers? Nuts, said Moose. So he unparted and unpiled, untwisted, untwined, and said adios to the hairy horns. But now what? The miserable moose took hold of a hunk of hair, and he wrestled it, and then he roped it. He tethered, tied, tamed, aha! A moose tail! Ta-da! Now that was so simple, that was so easy, that was not so perfectly perfect. Talk about a dizzy do. Moose didn't know if he was coming or going. Backward, forward, this way, that. He didn't know which end was which. Moose had to bail on the tail. And so he thought and thought and thought some more, but no other idea was a worthy winner. Braids were a bother, a moustache sweater? Too sweltering. A net? Not. Poor Moose. His problem was truly terrible, unbearable, just downright sad. He felt so alone, he didn't know what else to do. Then, call it fate, call it destiny. It was probably dumb luck. But one day, Moose tripped on his moustache and just had no time to duck. Oomph! Pardon me, oh, pardon me, they both said as they bumped. Then they blinked and they stared and their hearts went ka-thump, ka-thump, ka-thump. She was a moose with a bouffant so bodacious, outrageous. Well, it was just plain old big. Hair after hair piled higher than high. A skyscraping dew of glorious curls. A tower of swirling twists and twirls. She was simply splendid, stupendous, absolutely superb. Of course, Moose had to ask how she did what she did to get such a do. Ms. Moose winked and then whispered, just a little glue. So she helped he fearlessly plunge a hoof into a fat pot of the white gooey goop, and carefully, oh so carefully, they glopped. And they plopped, and they pasted, and they pressed, they coaxed and curled every truly unruly wayward whisker. Around and around they tweaked and twirled those horrible hairs until Moose's once mangy mess was now a wondrous winding wave of marvelous moustache. Moose gazed in the mirror and smiled a broad, moosey smile. He was so happy, so glad, just giddy with glee. He looked dashing and handsome. Moose gushed, is that really me? With not a care for one hair, the moose pair boogied and bopped. They skied downhill, even uphill, and their cooking was hot, hot, hot. So, of course, it wasn't long after that Moose and his moustache and his beautiful bride fox-trotted and tangoed and waltzed down the aisle. Good hair days, bad hair days, they vowed to love and to cherish, and with hearts heaped with love and pots filled with goop, they both sighed, I do, glue, and promised never to part. It was so easy, so simple, so perfectly perfect, and it stuck.
Do you see some special friends with me here today? This is my buddy Skeeter, and he's here to share life on the farm with you today. We're going to have a couple different farm stories. Now, Skeeter, we can't be eating the books right away from the start. You have to let us read them first. He's ready to get this started. We're going to start off with reading Big Red Barn by Margaret Wise Brown. You're going to hear some of these animals and even get to see them as we go through the story. By the Big Red Barn, in the great green field, there was a pink pig who was learning to squeal. There was a great big horse and a very little horse. Every barn is a weather vane, of course, a golden flying horse. there was a big pile of hay and a little pile of hay. And that is where the children play. I bet some of you like to play in hay when you are on the farm as well. But in this story, the children are away. Only the animals are here today. The sheep and the donkey, the geese and the goats were making funny noises down in their throats. An old scarecrow was leaning on a hoe, and a field mouse was born. Where do you think he was born? Oh, in a field of corn. Struggling. In the barn, there was a rooster. And a pigeon, too. And a big white hen standing on one leg. And under the hen was a quiet egg. There was a bantam rooster and a little bantam hen. With a big clutch of eggs. Count them. There are 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Moo! Moo! There was a big brown cow and a little cow. A black cat, meow, meow. And a tiger tomcat, meow, meow. He's jumping from the barn. There was a big red dog, bow wow, with some little puppy dogs, all round and warm. And they all lived together in the big red barn. And they played all day in the grass and in the hay. Look at all those fun animals playing in the grass and playing in the hay. When the sun went down in the great green field, the big cow lowed, the little pig squealed. The horse stomped in the sweet warm hay, and the little donkey gave one last bray. The hens were sleeping on their nests. Even the roosters took a rest. The little black bats flew away out of the barn at the end of the day. That's what they like to play. And there they were all night long, sound asleep. Shh. In the big red barn. Only the mice were left to play, rustling and squeaking in the hay. Wait, it sounds like the donkey woke up to hear the ending of our story. Only the mice were left to play, rustling and squeaking in the hay, while the moon sailed high in the dark night sky. Good night, animal friends. Have a great day, cricket friends.